Oh man, Twisted Metal fans, these latest two episodes, 4 and 5, specifically episode 5, were chef's kiss because they knew exactly what the fans wanted. What's up, nerds? It's JBuck, and boogity, let's get into all of the crazy Easter eggs, video game references, and tiny little things that you might have maybe missed in Twisted Metal episodes 4 and 5. Kicking things off, the gang is finally at Diesel City, the main story area in Twisted Metal 2012, full sky-to-ground combat area, said to be located just south of Los Angeles, so theoretically they didn't have to travel too far. The mission at hand is a low-rent Ocean's 11 special weapons heist with hiccups from the other tournament drivers. As they ready the plan through conversation, we learn that the blue Volkswagen New Beetle is actually named Shrapnel, a completely new vehicle made specifically for the TV series. Parked next to them actually looks like Luke Evans' flip car from Fast and Furious 6 with the front piece missing. Shared universe?
I don't have friends. I got family.
As they enter Diesel City, gas is exchanged for currency, with the gas canisters being a very loose reference to the gas can weapon from Twisted Metal Black. It was the first and last time used, as it was basically just a replacement for the lobbing napalm strikes. Various other weapons are briefly seen or mentioned, like the drop mines, first introduced in the original Twisted Metal, whereas my own personal experience with these was more Twisted Metal 2. All of the guards are using snipers to keep the peace, as yet again, this is another high-powered when accurate weapon pickup added in 2012 that actually allowed for a one-hit kill if the player had the time and patience. And of course, Sweet Tooth wanting a Molotov cocktail, which happened to be the special weapon for the character Yellow Jacket in the original Twisted Metal game. Yellow Jacket's driver, Charlie Kane, is canonically Sweet Tooth's father in some of the lore. I understand that the TV series is forging its own path with the lore and everything, but the Sweet Tooth and Yellow Jacket Molotov cocktails mentioned has gotta be purposeful from the showrunners. Quiet and John go undercover in some dystopian CEO and corporate hose outfits. Behind them, when talking with Mayhem, seems to be a military uniform and helmet that looks similar to what Warthog is wearing in the cutscenes from Twisted Metal 2. The pair sneak into an elite special weapons silent auction, and I tell you what, I was sitting there just pointing at everything in this scene because my 8-year-old self was beyond ecstatic about all of the special weapons featured. First up is the drop mine. I briefly mentioned this earlier, as the one pictured here looks more in line with the mine that was introduced or the redesign in TM 2012 rather than the frisbee disc looking ones from the previous games. This is one of also Dark Side's specials, specifically its rear special in TM 2012, dropping 4 separate mines. The Torch Bomb isn't exactly a one-for-one match to any of the games, but more than likely it falls in line with the Twin Scorcher special from Twisted Metal 4, specifically used with a Create a Character car, which fired a duo of missiles that will hunt down the opponents and then set them ablaze on impact. Napalm cones are the signature weapon of Sweet Tooth, essentially a flaming ice cream cone missile dating all the way back to the original Twisted Metal. I like how the cones of these missiles are basically ice cream shaped on the top, as these laughing cones can be seen in action later in episode 5. The Spike Bomb has been featured a couple of times, less so as Roadkill's special in Twisted Metal 3, while more familiar and newcomer to the Twisted Metal Black game, Junkyard Dog, and his spike launching special technically called a Death Ball. Later in episode 5, it looks like the old tow truck man is locked and loaded with these suckers. My guess is the Super Crush could also be interchanged with these spike bombs just from the appearance, but from the name alone, I thought that it could be Mr. Slam or Hammerhead's special because both do crush things, but like I said, visually it doesn't translate to this spike ball. Lastly, my 2 favorites from childhood, Ghost Missiles, which are missiles that are basically ghosts. Excellent homing capability and the ability to fly through walls and even through the ground. These were mainly used by the Spectre car, appearing in almost every single game. Now, Spectre and Ghost missiles were my favorite ever since Twisted Metal 2 because it was an easy set it and forget it type weapon. And of course, the Boomerang Blast, the high risk, high reward special weapon of Roadkill back in Twisted Metal 2. It's exactly what John Doe mentions here. The rockets, they act as boomerangs. The high risk, high reward aspect is dealing double damage to opponents if the projectile hits them on its return trip. While John and Quiet rub tips with the elites, by the way, I love this subtle callback to the lube guy.
Yeah, so someone actually killed my lube guy. It's crazy, who would kill an essential worker?
Stu is basically an honorary orgy guy here, which ties back to Hammerhead's cut lost ending from the original Twisted Metal. Hammerhead's final wish is for babes, man.
Well, what will it be?
God.
He even asks if he won some sort of contest, again alluding to the Twisted Metal tournament.
Oh, this is a sex thing? Did I win a contest or something?
Technically, if we want to get in the weeds about this, this is supposed to be Mike and Dave instead of Stu, but you can see the connection. Everyone is getting a freaky in Twisted Metal's version of the boys' Herogasm as Dollface and Sweet Tooth wander up to the crow's nest to open up the secret weapons vault. I couldn't help but think of the 3D platforming concept of Twisted Metal Lost, which was included as an extra feature in the Twisted Metal Head-On Extra Twisted Edition for PS2. This was only a short demo that I guess allowed the character to pick up some concept art while allowing players to, get out of the car and explore almost like a GTA game. This was going to be implemented in the canceled Twisted Metal Black sequel, Harbor City. So the more you know. Krista and Sweet Tooth discovered that there's a mobile EMP blast, which obviously both of them want for themselves. This was a newly introduced, updated 2012 version of the freeze missiles that were commonplace in almost all of the previous games. But, like I said, in the TM 2012, they wanted it to be more grounded, swapping out the freeze visuals with the more realistic electromagnetic pulse, a way to knock out any and all electronics. Things come to a close with the perfectly placed What Is Love needle drop.
What is love? Baby, don't hurt me.
As the gang escapes with all of their goods. Now I gotta say, Dollface feels like just a free-for-all character at this point compared to the games. Sure, earlier we saw her cruising in the Dark Side semi-truck, her vehicle from the games, but now it appears her vehicle for the actual tournament is going to be the ATV, which was Gene Ruddish's vehicle from Twisted Metal Head-On. I understand the series is standalone, but man, is her character all over the place with its lore and new kind of connections. John mentions he was able to grab some armor-piercing bullets, which is probably the Mega Gun's weapon pickup in Twisted Metal Black. Once picked up for a short time, the regular machine gun bullets have an increased rate of fire, and of course, power. Now these were hidden in Twisted Metal 1 and 2, but of course required a cheat code, and you know damn well I was using it. Shifting into episode 5, a majority of this episode is solely introducing viewers to all of the drivers entering the Twisted Metal contest. One by one, we're going to cover all of these because there is a lot of deep lore between their conversations, along with some mix and matching like I mentioned earlier with Dollface's lore and vehicle. As they drive in, a new challenger approaching voice announces their entrance into the tournament. John and Quiet are both driving the same roadkill car from Season 1, with John rocking a new spider embroidered vest, a nod to John Doe's Black Widow tattoo in Twisted Metal Black. Mayhem pokes fun at Roadkill's janky turn radius, which is kind of funny knowing that the vehicle's best handling stat is from Twisted Metal Head-On, with only a 5 out of 10. The newcomers start with Axel, the big ol' two-wheelied man, fan favorite character introduced last week, and from his conversation with Krista, who is clearly smitten for him, he could be driving to wish to stop violence in the world like his Twisted Metal Head-On counterpart, but we'll have to wait and see. The Knights from Episode 3 are a new group of drivers. Quiet called them the Knights of Nebraska, whereas reports from Comic-Con referred to them as the Knights of Omaha. Either way, completely new drivers rocking a wasteland medieval look, and their ride being the lime green 1972 Chevy El Camino with a mounted crossbow on its car's bed. Death Warrant is the Snake Plissken mixed with Battle Beast looking old dude. Yet again another new character solely for the TV series, as he is said to be this ruthless killer wearing his victim's hair and cruises around in a black 1998 Ford Crown Victoria with 3 different machine guns on its hood. Now technically, Death Warrant was, or appeared I guess in the games before, being one of the selectable vehicles in TM 2012 as an orange sports car that had it was one of the fastest vehicles in the game. Frostbite, this Icelandic-looking woman with her snow squall plow, is another new character for the series. Not much to her really, as she drives around in a Chevy Silverado with a snow plow on its front. My guess is that she'll be like a Mr. Slam or a Hammerhead ramming type vehicle, but then again, I'm curious if some of these lesser known drivers and vehicles will just be cannon fodder for the other well-known drivers. Junkyard Dog, with its driver Billy Ray Stillwell, is driving the old tow truck, taking the design from TM 2012, featuring a license plate of Bone Toe. I'm curious if this will lean into his lore from Twisted Metal Black, as that was his introduction. His backstory included him being a happy husband and farmer, only to be caught out in the field as a crop duster spread toxic chemicals all over his field. This disfigured him, only to learn that the whole crop dusting fiasco was purposeful, as the pilot and Billy's wife were in love, wanting Billy out of the picture to collect his life insurance money. Billy, full of rage, ended his wife's life and then went on a journey of revenge, hunting down the pilot. Again, who knows if the series is even going to touch on this. Vermin is played by comedian Lisa Gilroy, as her attire and vehicle actually lean closer to the Roach Coach and Goggle Eyes from Twisted Metal 4 than, the look of the Vermin van in TM 2012. She's nasty, and according to interviews, her wish, if she wins, is a world full of insects, rather than Goggle Eyes' wish to exterminate every single bug on Earth. Chucky Flop is the driver of the Spectre sports car in Twisted Metal Head On. This was a new one-and-done type character, but driving the Spectre vehicle instantly puts him in the vain, only looks, beauty, and popularity above all category, as that's a shared trait amongst all of the Spectre drivers. He was the 7th caller into a radio contest and won the Spectre car, entering the tournament. Truthfully, it sounds like some behind-the-scenes work from Calypso, as Chucky wishes for money, saying that he is not a loser.
I am not a loser!
Here I am. Okay, winner, right? Big time. Not a loser. Winner.
Spectre's license plate is Xeon 40V, which may be a nod to the Xeon hoverbike driven by Quattro in Twisted Metal 4. We were right about the Ford GT Probe from Episode 1 being Raven's new vehicle for the tournament. I initially thought that this could be Spectre back in Episode 1, but I believe that this is a completely new car for her for this series, despite it being named Shadow. So RIP to anyone who wanted the Shadow hearse to actually show up. And yes, I know it was in Season 1. Mr. Grimm and Sweet Tooth, we're already familiar with these two, but the two definitely have a past. Heck, yeah, back in Twisted Metal 4, Captain Grimm's wish was for the two to have a sword duel for Sweet Tooth's soul. Not much more of their history is really known, aside from both being locked up in the Blackfield Asylum. It is interesting that Grimm offhandedly calls Sweet Tooth by the name of Marcus, as this is a nod to the theory that all of Twisted Metal Black is happening in Sweet Tooth's mind. Essentially, in the game, once you unlock Minion, a secret character, all of his in-between level dialogue is coded with numbers. When decrypting the code, it's revealed that all of the drivers are stuck there, and Minion's real name is Marcus Kane, aka a split personality of Needles Kane, Sweet Tooth's name. They are one in the same, as it's further reinforced by Sweet Tooth's ending in Twisted Metal Head On. I highly doubt the series will actually latch on to this idea, but then again, they did add the best friend Harold, the paper bag, from Sweet Tooth's Twisted Metal 1 Lost ending. Sweet Tooth's line about nothing more powerful than a daddy's love is a sick nod to him, aka Marcus Kane, turned Needles Kane annihilating his family in the TM 2012 storyline. Preacher makes a surprising return as a baby.
What?
Yeah, apparently Jason Mantzoukas' Preacher bit the dust back in Season 1 and has been reincarnated or had his soul transferred into a body. Weirdly, this ties in to Twisted Metal Black's lore. So originally we learn or know that Preacher suffers from schizophrenia. This all makes sense because later in his story, he's performing a late-night exorcism on a baby. In doing so, he was able to excise the demon, but it jumped into Preacher's body instead, forcing him to eliminate everyone in the church during the exorcism. When the police arrived, apparently the demon just happened to leave his body as the police witnessed this horrific scene, landing him a one-way ticket to Blackfield Asylum. So you can see how they took this possession and baby lore and twisted, pun intended, it into this live-action interpretation. The actual drivers are Deacon and another holy man as they drive Preacher's car, Brimstone, featuring the Brimstone license plate and even the stained glass windows. However, this is a PT Cruiser rather than the 1964 Chevy El Camino from Twisted Metal Black. Instead, the Knights of Omaha drive or got the El Camino. Surprisingly, Mike of the Mike and Stu duo from Season 1 has survived Sweet Tooth's attack and now teamed up with Dave. This is the original pair of the Hammerhead monster truck from Twisted Metal 1, as Mike and Stu are the duo of Hammerhead in Twisted Metal 2. It's interesting that Mike and Dave pretty much met the same fashion as were introduced to Mike and Stu in Season 1. Despite their vehicle being called Hammerhead, it is the furthest from a monster truck, instead being a student driver's vehicle with the license plate of Learn to Drive. Maybe I'm digging a little too deep, but they might be the ambiguously gay duo of the Twisted Metal world. The last two are Mayhem's Shrapnel, which I didn't notice this before, but has a stiletto hanging from its rear view mirror, as this was a story beat for Dollface in TM 2012. Dollface purposely injured the other models so that she would have no competition in the modeling industry. And of course, Dollface is driving the ATV that we mentioned earlier. Time for Calypso's grand entrance.
Calypso.
The showrunners no doubt are using TM 2012 as a major influence for his look, sporting a similar hairstyle and jacket-tie combo. He mentions that this is a qualifying round, similar to how the first level of the original Twisted Metal was framed, as each driver races to an undisclosed location, having to deliver a mysterious package. Let the car combat shenanigans begin, because this 7-minute sequence is straight fire, having Calypso eclipse the sun and turn the sky into a bloodish red hue like in Twisted Metal 2, as Rob Zombie's Dragula kicks in and everyone gets buck wild. Based on the comments from my Season 1 video, most fans were waiting for this sick needle drop and high-octane action, as Rob Zombie was a guest driver in Twisted Metal 4, with Dragula being a mainstay on its soundtrack, featured again in TM 2012, with him contributing other songs in Twisted Metal 3. As all of the drivers get into a free-for-all, this feels like a nod to TM 2012's Battle Race level, where contestants race through a predetermined number of checkpoints to reach a finish line marker, which results in the remaining contestants' destruction, and taking place on an airstrip could be a sick nod to the ending of Dollface's story in TM 2012, where she wishes to be on the world's largest runway, which turns out to be an airline runway and gets smooshed by the plane's landing gear. Reeling things back a bit, mass chaos and machine guns and rockets are flying everywhere. There's some Sweet Tooth napalm cone action that has Grimm using his scythe to redirect some of the missiles. Now, Grimm was equipped with this special weapon in Twisted Metal Black, unfortunately never returning to the series. Some of the drivers use a 12-gauge shotgun as a sidearm, a newly introduced weapon in weapon class in TM 2012. Lastly, the big ol' missile that drops from the sky and eliminates the drivers may be a bevy of different weapons from the games, like potentially rain missiles, the MIRV, but my best guess is that these rockets being the satellite weapon introduced in Twisted Metal Black. Launch them up and then wait for them to just come raining back down. I'm curious if we'll see more of these bigger, obscure weapons in future episodes, so let me know if you think the rocket is something else from the games. These 2 episodes, especially the car combat in episode 5, is exactly what I want from the series. Sure, the tone and comedy is really weird, like it'll be happy-go-lucky sometimes and then super dark, violent, and sexy at other times. I hope this ending means a ramp up in the action department, and I cannot wait to see what the next 2 episodes hold. Drop all of your thoughts on these latest 2 episodes. What did you like? What did you not like? What did you nerd obsessively over when it was on screen? Let's hear it all in the comments. Feel free to subscribe and like, as it really, of course, helps the channel. And yeah, if you spotted any Easter eggs or references that I missed, please drop them below. Vroom vroom, I'm outie. Peace.